Alrighty. Good evening, everybody. This is another episode of Awoken with Alden. I'm your host, Alden S. Nance, and welcome back to Awoken Wednesday as we begin a another episode on our journey. And wanted to briefly mention main topic for this evening is that we are going to be discussing how you can get involved in the local political climate yourself, because a lot of people are like, hey, how can I get involved? What do I need to do to get involved? uh what should I do? Well, one of the best things that you can do, that maybe not the first thing you do to get involved in the political process, but one of the more advanced uh deals you do is running for office, right? It's very courageous, very brave. A lot of people will always say, if running for office was easier, then more people would do it. And that's very true, right? So, it's a lot of sacrifice, it's a lot of personal time, money that you have to. Here, let's get this guy. There we go. Yeah, now I got a little like monkey goblin ears or something. Hang on. Okay, awesome. Tremendous. So what as I was mentioning a few minutes ago, um, or a few moments ago rather, is that we're going to be talking about how you can run and get involved in your local politics and elections, right? So it's one, just before we hop right into the slide, the PowerPoint tonight, is we need to sorry, give me one moment. um Here, let's go to the here. Just give me 1 second, actually. I'm not familiar with that process. I don't tend to be familiar with that process. Okay, so let's just kind of restart this for a moment. And um, yeah, so you're running for office. You're hoping to make a change in your local community. And what some what are some things that you can do to assist with that? Well, let's just go into the power. Sorry, I had a little technical difficulty there. Um, we'll hop right back into it. Um, Here, let's just go to the PowerPoint now. All right, so here I want to make sure it. All right, great. All right, perfect. Got it this time. Alrighty. So, hello, thumbnail. There's thumbnail for the show itself this evening. Is that how to win a local election? How can your if you're actually serious and want to get involved, what can you do to help your chances out? And if you're really, this is America first, right? We're putting our nation and our local communities first, and we want to make sure that we have good, solid, decent people in these uh, local office seats. So yeah, why local elections matter. Okay, a couple things, right? It's your immediate government, right? So you know, you're in southern Indiana, eastern Illinois, western Kansas. That's pretty far away from the nation's capital, our federal government. And so you're going to be a lot more of your local day-to-day stuff, excuse me, there will be handled and discussed through, your mayor, your town council, your city council, county commissioners, whatever it is. Um, yeah, whatever position is in power is going to do a lot to have a influence on your day-to-day local life, in your local community, your neighbors, your town, your city, etc. And so yeah, let's just kind of sorry. Okay, so yeah, your local elections matter obviously a lot because you want to have a good voice for your city. That's where you live. That's you deal with it from day to day, your drive to work, your kids' schools, your the roads, the how late, how other, sewage pipes, construction, all of that stuff is decided more or less in, your small community, your local government building, whatever. Let's go to the right. So if you're running, you want to pick the right race. And what I mean by that is, school board, for example, city council, precinct committeeman, precinct captain, mayor, county executive, county coroner, county sheriff. Any of these positions, uh, the only thing that they all have in common is that they're governmental positions and they're elected positions, right? County sheriff is a lot different than mayor. City council is similar to mayor, but it's not the same. Everything has its systems, its checks and balances, all of that good stuff. So, yeah, you want to pick the right race to run for, right? So, if you're running for sheriff, it helps if you have a background in enforcement, for example. It wouldn't, uh, if you picked up, maybe if you were a teacher for 40 years or you did this or that for that extended period of time, then yeah, you may not be the best candidate for sheriff. And that's just going to happen sometimes. So, and you also want to figure out why you want to run. Yeah, let's really get out now. Come on. Um, excuse me. But you really want to know why you want to run. What's the why? What really gets you excited and thrilled about your local community or something that has lit a almost like a fire under your bottom to say, hey, something needs changing. What is that? Whether it's the school stink, all the kids, you have a high school graduation class of like 70% and nobody has a job, nobody's doing particularly well, nobody's doing this, nobody's doing that. So that's what you want to get fired up about. So it also kind of helps your stump speech. So you're going to be meeting these people in your community, meeting important, business owners, uh, shop clerks, anything like that, any of those positions. And they're going to say, hey, why should they're simply eventually going to say, hey, why should I vote for you? Or why should I vote at all? Or why should I put a lawn sign in front of my property or on my property? Why should I promote your page on Facebook or anything like that? So you also have a very good grounded like why. And for example, it could be that goodness gracious, like the budget is out of control. There is the city's in debt. always has to get needs to get bailed out by the state, or the roads stink and nobody can get to work, or something else collapses that makes it, your local community really, really, really challenging to live in, or harder to live in. Let's just say that. And you also want to have some like self-awareness when you're picking which office to run for, because you do not want to have your first time running for office challenging like a 40-year incumbent. Or maybe your mayor is, maybe it's his first term, but maybe everybody loves your mayor. Like your mayor is, yeah, the most popular person in your city, more popular than local athletes or other celebrities or whatever, you know. So you don't want to, yeah, make a mistake when you're choosing which office to run for. That could be detrimental to your candidacy and really end it. End it before it even really begins. Uh, know some history about the seat you're hoping to win. What's a normal voter turnout? What is normal? Uh, what's the party composition? Is it if you're a Democrat and you're running in a 90% GOP district, that's not really going to help you. I mean, yeah, you're just not really going to be able to execute your goals that well. All right. So have some self awareness and stuff like that. The um, yeah. So just to summarize this last guy up, picking the right office to run for is, it's the first thing you do. It's essentially the first choice. It's almost like being born. You're being born into this political office election, and if you choose somewhere bad to live, it's, yeah, you're not going to be successful. So make sure that you're participating in a race that you think you either have an advantage in, or that you have at least a fighting shot in. A toss up, or that, yeah, something that makes your candidacy uh, viable. So yeah, I was mentioning just a couple seconds ago, you have, the voter math, right? So you don't want to run in a very uh, yeah, a district where, and maybe your campaign message doesn't line up with the district or the office you're running for, right? So for example, if you're running for sheriff and you're like, well, I really want to fix these schools, or make that kind of uh, overlaps a little. However, it's what's a better example? Maybe not. Yeah, maybe sheriff, and you're like, man, the prices are unaffordable. Yeah, something like that. Something kind of goofy. That's going to be a little harder, right? So, um, yeah, you need that, and you also have to set your goal, right? So getting elected, you can, if there's a lot of candidates, sometimes you don't need 50% of the vote. But if it's you and one other person, or one or two other, yeah, if it's just you and one person, say whether it's for the primary or the general, your goal is 50% plus one. And what do I mean by that? You need at least half the voters, and then you need one additional vote. It's very simple, actually. So ask your mother, ask your father, ask your brother, or someone like that to be that 51st vote, kind of. And you'll see a yeah, that's a good base right there, because um yeah, you always want to make sure that, all right, I have this one additional vote, and then you can go out and get everyone else. It's very Uh, that's something I would highly advise you to do. Right. So yeah, it's about winning your local election. You're not running for president of the United States. You're not running for U.S. senator. Yeah, you're not running a statewide race. And if your community is tiny, it's yeah, the math could be you might only need a couple dozen votes, maybe. Remember a couple weeks ago when we did the election night coverage, how that one individual, uh, Dan Miller or yeah, something Miller, ran for mayor of Harrisburg against Wanda Williams, and to get the GOP nomination, he just started a write-in campaign, and it only took a few dozen people to get the nomination. So that's something that you always need to keep in mind, is that you also want to know the numbers are everything. Like how many people live in your community, right? Now, let's say you have a a city that has 50,000 people in it, and let's say there's you want to run for county commissioner, and it's they split the city up into 5 districts, or so that's 10,000 people that live there. Now, I've been talking registered voters, but people that only live there. And so, yeah, you're at your 10,000. And let's say voter, because, yeah, you have children, you have people that are very old that can't really think anymore. You have people that uh, are ineligible to vote, maybe, maybe people, felons, for example. I know that's one sometimes that is a little more difficult for them to vote. So now you're 10,000, let's say that's 8,000 potential registered voters. And break that down to, let's axe another 2,000, because let's say only 75% end up getting registered. So you go to, now you're down to, I believe 6,000 now already that are registered to vote. Pick a party, let's say party's 50-50. So now you got 3,000 voters you're looking at. Already in just a couple of minutes, we've discerned 100,000 people that live in your community, back to about 3,000 people that that's the base you need. That's who you really need in order to win. So just know the math, know historical election results from the district. And you can kind of table that out. And the book describes it very well. So what these historical election results are going to appear as is you'll have, depending on, if it's a midterm or presidential, or if the office you're seeking is conducted under a maybe an off year election, like an odd year, like a 3 or a 5 or a 7 or something like that, not an even year, is you'll want to go back and look, and it will have the highest office on the table. So let's just say it's a midterm year, next year. U.S. Senator, that's a statewide position. So now you'll want to look at like the 22 midterm results or the 2018, something. Yeah, last couple are usually okay. And yeah, once you have that doubt, you'll see, okay, U.S. Senator from this party got that many votes, and you'll go down, because everyone gets the same ballot, but it doesn't mean they all voted. Some people are straight ticket voters. Some people are split ticket voters. Some people will skip some certain races, or they can't stomach themselves to vote for a certain race or a candidate or candidates. In that case, maybe they write in somebody instead. Who knows? Doesn't really matter. So let's say there's five offices that were up for that cycle: senator, congressman, city council, county commissioner, and dog catcher. And you're going to want to look at everyone from the party you selected. And let's just say, for the sake of this, you're in the or you choose the Republican Party banner to run under. So you want to look at, all right, how many votes did the U.S. Senate candidate get? How many votes did the city council candidate get? Whatever, and you'll go through and rank it 1 to 5, and examine who those people were. Right? Is there a reason that your senator didn't get many votes in your district? Was it because of a scandal they were involved in, or yeah, were they a good candidate? Did they visit the area much? Did Where do they live in the state? Those are just a couple questions to get you started. Same with city council. Like, how long has this guy been in office? Is this his first time running? Is this uh, is he popular? Is he unpopular? What are his ideas, etc. And you'll rank it 1 to 5, and the lowest candidate, whoever is in fifth, that's your base. Because let's say the dog catcher is in that fifth place spot. Well, that's okay. Well, stinks for that guy because probably lost. But yeah, it's still okay in the sense that that's your base. You're going to have that many votes unless if you somehow yeah, depending on that specific person, it will, yeah, you'll have at least that many votes because that's how many people that are willing to vote for the party. Maybe that's a combination of straight ticket voters. Goodness. And yeah, so that's what you're going to want to do there. Is so now you have your base of votes. Now you want to know, all right, how can I get to the next level? And you essentially just want to do everything right, get it all the way up that you can, or your numbers. All right, so next, this is very important. This is your regime, basically. Think of it as a regime, and you want to surround yourself with, at a local election, pick a dozen. Doesn't have to be your family's going to help you, but if you want someone experienced in politics to be your campaign manager. Maybe you want your neighbor's real chill guy. Maybe he can help you. Maybe a donor. You're going to need money at some point. So keep that in mind while you're building, your low dozen base regime. It could be, yeah, friends, other people you've met in politics, really anybody, right? Because it's local. It's fun. It's not um nobody's going to die. Okay? Yeah, that's something important too. Yeah, nobody's going to be um I'm just going to check this real quick. But yeah, like at the end of the day, everyone's friends, it's probably not that nasty. It's yeah, I just wouldn't be super um all too worried. Okay, excuse me. All right, got that taken care of now. So but yeah, you're going to want a strong base. You're going to want people that have yeah, they're going to have your back, people that are trustworthy. And outside of just this dozen person regime, right? You're going to want someone that uh like campaign manager. Probably don't need a speechwriter at this level. It might help to have someone that does volunteer help, help people that are outside of the immediate regime support you. Other uh, other people that, yeah, maybe someone that kind of helps with press or people that help you make big decisions or which event do I need to go to? All of that stuff. Someone to help plan door knocking and phone banking. You need somebody in your regime that preferably has connections to your local county party. That's huge. You need people that can get you plugged in places that you don't know how to get plugged in by yourself. That's your regime right there. And also building your base in terms of your voter base, right? So now you have your regime, and the next thing that you're going to do is that you need to find a way to start attracting voters for your yeah, you're selling yourself along with your regime. You want to talk about, how can I sell myself? What do I need to do? What should I say? What issues do I need to prioritize more than others? What, what are the other candidates saying? What's a weak spot? Where does my opponent, we just did some oppo on him. He tweeted out a bunch of explicit messages, 10 years ago, or there's this that makes him look embarrassing, right? So you're going to want to strategize with them uh, about all of this stuff. And excuse me, your base of support, though, is, yeah, that's what's going to get you elevated and into office, right? So you're really going to want to think about, hey, what do I hear the most when I go to the city council meeting, or when I talk to the grandmas at the park, or when I, meet with these people at this specific location? What do they want me to do for them, right? So just kind of keep in mind of like what people are saying, and say, hey, this, back to your why, the reason that you're running, and say, yeah, I'm actually running because of this reason alone. I think it's a shame that all of, that our taxpayer dollars are being spent on crap, or stuff that doesn't work, or etc. Maybe they're complaining about utility bills being too high, and you can be like, well, as you elect me to the city council, first thing I'll do is write a letter to the mayor, demanding, hey, what's you need to do something about this, or maybe I can introduce an ordinance, or something like that. Yeah, introduce a resolution or a bill in the city council that will address, your high utility concerns. Or if that doesn't work, I'm gonna write a letter to the CEO of the energy company and be really stern about, say, hey, my constituency and my neighbors, my family, uh, what you're doing is wrong. It's unethical, and you need to lower the prices or tell us what's going on, right? So you want your why to be something that can elevate you and shoot you quickly. Uh, that's based off of the concerns of the community. Does that make sense? Yeah, so that's going to be your base. You want people, yeah, uh, and even the local politics, the D and the R, it honestly really doesn't matter, because you're not doing federal stuff per se. So you're just going to want to be as cast a wide net, especially in local politics. Uh, there will be some mistakes that I'll urge you to avoid later, but let's see the next guy. Okay, yeah, it's actually next slide. So yeah, what you don't want to do is, you don't want to have. Uh, there's a lot of ways to go at this. The first is, you want to avoid the second you remember, we're being born when we're running for office. So the second you're born, and that you put yourself out there wanting to run, treat it as there's some camera or someone in oppo always looking at you, or whatever, because now you're a target. There's a big old target on you now, and they're going to want to get you. Very simple. It's an unfortunate reality of politics. So you don't want to be doing, yeah, you don't want to be out at 3 in the morning driving around, driving drunk, going home from the bar. You don't want to be obnoxious or particularly loud or embarrassing in places. You don't want to be, yeah, publicly intoxicated. You don't want to, you know, and you also want to be prepared in the terms of not making mistakes. So before, uh, clean your social media, get rid of any posts that could be offensive, to minority groups or racial groups, or you said something bad about the community at a time. Whatever it is, you don't want to be, yeah, you don't want to give the your opponents free ammo. That's what I'm simply trying to say. So that's what I'd advise the most with that. You also don't want to be wasting time when you're campaigning. So if the person in your regime that's plugged up to the county party or the state party, and if they can get good information, this won't happen. But there is a risk that, as I was talking to you earlier about building your base, where you should door knock, who you should call on the phone. You don't want to be door knocking on. I mean, let me take a step and step back and let me break it down actually a little easier. And whether you realize it or not, is that in some system out there by both state parties in your state, or county parties in your local municipality, you're given a number: one, two, three, four, or five. And one, for example, is like hard leftist, flaming lib, bleeding heart liberal. Two might be like, okay, like moderate Democrat, not super liberal, but more left than right. Then three is like true independent, centrist. And four is kind of like the opposite of two, like moderate GOP voter. And then, number five would be, hard far right character. And how do they calculate this? Well, they calculate it through your voting pattern and primaries. If your state, uh, has, hey, when you go up to vote, you usually have to tell the clerk, the person who you hand your identification to, say, hey, I'd like a D or an R ballot or whatever, and the state parties, this information is granted to them, and then they can give you a number. So back to our example of, all right, now a GOP, you're running on the right. You don't want to be spending all your time talking to ones, and or whether it's on the phone or door knocking. Do not be trying to. You want to get every vote, but not every vote is out there and available. There's going to be people that on both sides that are just going to give you a hard time about it. They're going to want to waste your time. They're going to want to do this. They're going to want to uh, chat your ear off about crap. Whatever it is, you don't want to waste time, because time in the campaign is precious, especially because the voter doesn't. You may have to announce your candidacy for an election in June and January, or like like Christmas or Thanksgiving before. And most people will not really start paying attention until, like, if it's in June, maybe May, like a month out. So, anytime you can, yeah, talk to people, or, oh goodness, yeah, like you just don't want to be wasting a whole lot of time before, um, because that's time that you could be doing other campaign events or fundraising. We'll get into that in another second. We'll get into a couple things. Um, um, Excuse me. But yeah, like, and some other mistakes you definitely would like to avoid is, um, and it's more of a personal thing, but you don't want to be shackled to an individual donor or donors. Then that means, yeah, you're almost like that puppet, right? The generic puppet that most people talk about that our political system currently is today. I know it's hard, especially if you're new, to not want to accept a whole bunch of money, but yeah, you're going to want to be powered through grandmas giving $15 checks and you know working class voters giving you $5, $10. That's how you're going to want to do it. And it's not saying that you can't have your wealthier friends or wealthier people even give you some money, like thousands. You just don't want to be at the spot to where there's one or two individuals that are uh more or less running the show financially. You can have people that maybe pull above their weight, but you don't want it to the point to where you're stuck to them. Yeah, that's all they're for, is that now you're beholden to them, or they're going to pull the cash or whatever. So don't be beholden to a singular donor or donors. That's a big no-no. We don't want we want to serve our people in our community, not a couple wealthy individuals. Okay. Other mistakes. I'd say, in general, and mistakes is that there's a lot of legal stuff that goes on with campaigns, lots of paperwork, lots of filing deadlines. You don't want to be caught in, um, goodness gracious. Like, let's say your campaign is not reporting everything, whether that's donations or what you're spending stuff on. That's another big thing, is that you need somebody to, every time you spend campaign money on something, you need a receipt. You need someone to record that transaction, what it was for. It doesn't have to be all the specifics. Like if you're ordering food on the, um, for volunteers, you don't have to say large pizza, but you want to say, hey, I got food from Papa John's. I spent $100. So people that not endorse me all day could have a lunch, got some soda too, got some water, spent $20 on that. And you want have that in a report. So people are like, hey, where'd all your campaign cash go? Notice that, yeah, you haven't really done much advertising or whatever. So, and that could get you in jail, if you lie about that stuff. So be very careful about the finance side of it. Absolutely. Another big thing is that you want to keep receipts on and keep track of, and not make a mistake, is like filing deadlines. For example, like what you don't want to do is, because you have to go down and officially file. What you don't want to do is say, hey, I'm running for this, and then you show up a couple of days later and it's past the candidate filing deadline. That would be an embarrassing mistake. It would damage everything. Yeah, you wouldn't be allowed to run and no one would take you seriously again. So you want to avoid making bad mistakes like that, because sometimes I think politics about the reverse of it, right? People are always saying, well, you need to chase voters. Well, how about chasing voters and don't, and in the sense that you're not giving them a reason to not go out and vote for you? Like what I said a couple minutes ago about, like, if you're drunk at the bar, you're falling over, you're knocking glasses shattering, it's loud. You don't want someone, especially like a mother kind of figure or a woman, to be like, oh, that's tacky. That candidate's tacky. Then it's over. If you got on Facebook saying, hey, John Doe, he was at the bar and he was grabbing women inappropriately and he's married. He tried getting in his car to drive home after 15 bush lights. That's going to be, not only you're going to go to jail, that's an extreme example, but your candidacy will also be ending right there too. Here, let's make sure I got this. Great. Okay. Yeah. So when you're running, you're going to want to start local, especially get involved in politics the first time. It's the community you know the most. It's a lot of times maybe where you're born. A lot of times maybe you're not born there, but you've lived there for 15 or 20 years. Maybe you own a restaurant there. Maybe you are a teacher at the biggest high school or the only high school, maybe. That's also something is that you're going to, when you're trying to expand your base, you got to think all over the place. And that's what's really fun about local politics is okay, it's almost like a cast of characters on a TV show. Think of it like this. For your candidacy, you're the main candidate, but also other people in your community. And they may not be political. Maybe the guy who owns Shelley's, that's just a generic restaurant name, for example. Maybe that's your brother. And then boom, you can, yeah, maybe he'll let you put your campaign sign down in the front lawn or advertise there or make that your campaign headquarters. That's also something else is that you'll want to get at least a somewhat semi-decent campaign headquarters figured out. That's a meeting you can meet with your your inner circle, your regime within that place and discuss campaign strategy, discuss this, discuss that, whatever it really is that it needs to be. Let's go here. Yeah, I think that's a lot of what I wanted to get. But no, and look, you can everything. This was a very brief overview of kind of the campaign, right? You want to have your dates in order. When is the election? That needs, a lot of men forget their anniversary. Well, you better not forget election day, or whenever the election is. You want to know the early voting times. You want to know if people can vote by mail. There's all of these questions that you're going to want to have to get figured out before you even officially announce your candidacy a lot of times, like when you're still planning your initial run, because you don't want to run or announce and then have to figure all that out. Well, shoot, I didn't know this or I didn't know that. And it hinders your opportunities in the race because of that. So yeah, you're going to want to start local to get involved in politics, right? So just kind of a brief overview of what we discussed, and this is all very surface level. I could do 100 of these, and discussing all of these more niche questions and issues, because there's like a whole, like when you're campaigning, well, are you going to want to send out mailers? How many signs do you want? Yeah, how many different, you're probably going to want to have nice photos taken of you. That's going to cost time and money, so you can make a new picture and put it on the slide, or not your slide, like your pamphlets that you hand out, your door knockers. So a lot of it is like a SWOT analysis for a business or anything else. Know your strengths, know your weaknesses. You figure out how to work on those weaknesses. What are your opportunities? Like the voters, obviously, and the threats. The other candidates, people who oppose your candidacy. Maybe it's big pharma or big oil. I doubt in a local race, but maybe in a local race it's Big Cheesy. Maybe Cheesy owns the restaurant and he really doesn't want you to run because you're going to reinstore integrity to the health inspector or something like that. So yeah, local communities they're all different. They're all unique in the sense that, and every campaign is different. There will be general issues each time, but stuff will pop up. You need to be prepared. You need to know a lot about your city. You need to know the neighborhoods. You need to know the culture. You need to know about damn near everything. You need to be almost a master at it. Okay. So I think that is our last. Oh, yeah, your next steps. Yeah, next steps is you're just going to want to take that jump. You're going to want to um, follow your heart and go all in for it. Don't hold back at all, especially if your community is on the line. That's the urgency you should be feeling. So that would be my biggest advice with that. But no, there's so many things that you need to understand as a local candidate. And and back to your why, are you just running for the wrong or right reasons? You just have to be honest with yourself and the voters, and hopefully everything works out well. Okay, so that's the end of the guy there, and I will be happy to field uh, questions and other concerns or anything that I failed to explain as well. Yeah, you can just send a little chat in the chat box down here. I just said hello. How is everybody doing on this Awoken Wednesday? Another one. Yeah, we've been doing this for a little over a month now. So very happy with where we are right now. So yeah, I'll leave the guy open for a few moments. See if anyone's like texted. Okay, we are Gucci there. But yeah, has everyone yeah, how's everyone been doing? Like a pretty crazy uh last couple days in the news week. Okay, let's see. Other than mayor, what is the most powerful local position? Hmm, let me think. Um, that's a good one. I'd say a lot of like money, and that will go to. I'd say honestly, like another most powerful position is like the election office. Yeah, the county clerk, um, who oversees the elections. Your county treasurer. Collects local taxes. That's also pretty important. Handling the money. So I'd even say treasurer. In my view, especially on a local count, yeah, like within your community itself, because that's where, um, if you're running for mayor and the treasurer can't handle the finances or whatever, then it's going to be hard for your regime to be successful. So, absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, county treasurer is a very important position. But yeah, a pretty big news week, honestly. There's soon to be king, but currently still uh, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, visiting the White House. That's always different. Okay, we got T. Wayne back in the House, commissioner. Yeah, like county commissioner. That's pretty big because they do like the local zone ordinances, and they help figure out, uh, help solve issues in that realm. Your county council. Um, does pretty much the city just for outside of your county. And that's different because, like, where the county I'm from is that you have an influential city, of course, but you also have, a county that is outside of the city that also votes for uh, like sheriff or other county-wide uh, offices. So you have to find a way to have a balance between the city and the county voters. Okay, just had a how much had a fan text in. How much influence does a local candidate have on state issues? And the right local candidate can have significant sway over state issues in the sense that maybe they're from, yeah, it's a state house seat, and um yeah, like it's your local state government, and it's a 50-50 district. So you're still local in the sense, but you're one of the more sought after seats in the entire state. So yeah, you can have a big sway that way. You can um, also, for example, like if you're mayor of a larger city in your state, the state government is going to need your help, and you're going to need them. So you're going to have a solid, decently solid relationship with them, right? And that's something about building your base. You don't want to be cutting off bridges. You don't want to be a doofus in the sense that, yeah, you want to at least try and work with everybody. That would be some good advice there, because if you're uh, yeah, hard to work with, that's going to hurt your reelection chances. There, you'll be ostracized politically and in your community. So that's kind of back to the like making mistakes. You just don't want to be doing a whole lot of stuff that makes life harder for you and your career to be successful. Thoughts on Texas? No property taxes. How will schools be funded? Well, here, let's actually check that out. Let's do some class reading. But yeah, if there's no, oh, like the state here, let's go to, here, let's go to the Texas Tribune. Okay, great. Okay, yeah, voters. Okay, property tax breaks for Texas homeowners and businesses. Tuesday's vote is part of a push by Texas lawmakers to rein in the state's high property taxes. Okay, let's see. Voters approved a constitutional amendment Tuesday to raise the state's homestead exemption, meaning the amount of a home's value that can't be taxed to pay for public schools from 100,000 to 140,000, shaving hundreds of dollars off the biggest chunk of the typical homeowner's property tax bill. Homeowners above the age of 65 or living with disabilities will see even bigger cuts after voters signed off on a separate amendment. Businesses, too, are set to get a break on their property taxes. Voters gave the green light to an amendment to exempt up to $125,000 of businesses' inventory from being taxed by school districts, cities, counties, or any other taxing entity. Yeah, and it seemed like it passed with flying colors, almost, yeah, 80%, dang near. Wow. So it seemed pretty popular among the voters. Okay, so here under yeah, here's where we're going again, the bread of it. Under the homestead exemption amendment, the owner of a typical Texas home valued at 302,000 last year, according to Zillow, would have saved around 490 on their school property taxes had the higher exemption been in effect last year. Huh. Wow, 51 billion over the next 2 years. Oh, on cuts. Well, what I think they're trying to do is that it's a way, uh ooh, yeah, that's might be a little tough for schools. Okay, meanwhile, the state is paying for the bigger inventory tax exemption for school districts. But city, yeah, they will have to. Yeah, so I guess somewhere else they're gonna have to get the money. Uh, is that it? Okay. Do you think this could be a trend public schools will suffer? Yeah, like it seems like in the schools, as we kind of already know, are uh, a lot of them aren't that good, especially in the cities. Yeah, like they already struggle with funding. They already struggle with retention. They already struggle with this or that. So yeah, public. It's tough for public schools right now. Anyway, but yeah, it when it comes to the tax stuff, there will just be some either new tax created or et cetera to kind of make up for it. But yeah, I did not know about that. Thank you, T Wayne, for that information. That is quite important to know about. Yeah, and that happened on the same night that Wanda Williams was reelected mayor of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And a lot of other things happened that night too, but that's just something that kind of fun for the show. I want I went to an international prep academy. How was that, T Wayne? Please International Prep Academy. Uh, International Prep Academy. The best. That's what I hope to hear from T Wayne. Yeah. As long as yeah, we need, my followers only deserve the best education system for them. So yeah, let's go. Yeah, let's go. Yeah. Gotta get that. Gotta get those schools, man. Yeah, and something else, schooling kind of made me think of a good point is when you're uh, voters that have the high, so statistically your odds of going to vote, there's two really big things that determine that, whether you kind of realize that or not, is your age and education. uh, an 18-year-old high school dropout probably not voting, but like an 85-year-old doctor, yeah, man, like they're always voting, all those old people. um, that's why you typically see uh, oh, what's a good way to say this? Yeah, that's why a lot of the candidates are older. That's why a lot of the entire system. And so just look at the current, the nationwide elite. Everybody is old. Everybody feels like half of the people in office were born before the civil rights movement, that are still in office. Like we're talking about, these people have been old and they have been around a long, long time. So not only aids in education for like voting, it seems to correlate into, serving. Oh, I just lost it. Oh no. Okay, there we go. Okay, but if no one else has any more questions, we'll call this episode for this week. Next week, we'll see about the topic. It has been a relatively faster news week this week, but maybe we'll get back into some history or something like that next week. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to do another one of these. We'll do these frequently, or semi-frequently at least, because uh, ultimately, me talking can only get so far in terms of like making move. Right? Yeah, people have to act. Uh, yeah, there's several different ways to get involved in politics, but running for offices, especially local office, is noble and an honorable a task to take on. So yeah, if that's it, I will. Unless if someone has something else in the next couple seconds before we get off here, is thank you very much again for listening this week and watching the show. Please share, the links. Please like and subscribe. Share it with your friends, your family, barber, mail lady, whoever. Just think of me as like yeah, use this show as like practice for when you're running for office. Use me as like you're trying to make my show big for me. Okay, so promote me, make me signs, make me campaign flyers. I'm just kind of goofing with you. Um, but yeah, you have been awoken with Alden. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Keep looking on the socials. All right, much love.